everyone, this is your career coach Jenny. So, another question that I wanted to talk for a really long time and I've been contemplating, and finally here I am. So, we're going to talk about conflict management. This is a very significant question, I would say, and it's really crucial to the role that you have applied for. Say it in a healthcare sector, you're a nurse, doctor, or not in a healthcare sector, which can be an IT or an automobile. It could be anything. But this question is it's a question that can cover, in any organizations. So if you are applying for a senior level position, then you will be asked this question, like how can you give an examples, or how have you managed a conflict between the team members. But if you are in a junior level position and you've applied for a role, then you will be asked questions and give an example of how you have resolved a conflict in a workplace between a colleague, or between a team member, or sometimes if it's a healthcare sector, they would give a scenario as well. And I have noticed recent times, I have a candidate who was interviewing for a registered nurse position in Australia for a private hospital, and her experience was theatre based, and she was applying for a role as an anesthetist nurse. And while doing the interview, she was asked a question about a conflict between her or an anesthetist. So they will give you real examples sometimes, and sometimes they will ask you in a generic way, and they will expect you to give them examples and scenarios. This situation, how do you start about it? So if they ask this question, tell me about a conflict. So I'll tell you what is a commonly answered question, and which is not true as well. The candidates are not honestly answering this question. They say, oh, I'm very respectful. I'm very good with my colleagues. I have maintained good relationship with my colleagues. I've never come across any conflict. But this could be true, but then it doesn't answer the question, if that makes sense. So you've been asked, can you give an example for conflict resolution or conflict management, but you have not given the answer. You have given that, oh, I've not been through that situation. But here is what you should do at this point is, despite you not being in that situation, you've not had a conflict, you should still come up with answers. Yeah, you should still talk about, well, I have not come across a conflict with my colleague or a team member, but if this happens, this is what I am going to do. And then you put it down step by step way. So there is a technique which is commonly advised and is also recommended by interview coaches and recruitment consultant or recruitment specialists, because then you put it down, so not the major points, the key points, I would say, are not missed. So first you talk about the situation. So say, for example, if they have not given you the scenario, that makes it easier sometimes, I would say, because in your mind you can bring up a scenario. For example, if there is a conflict between me and my colleague, then in that situation, if that happens in front of the other team members, then I would, what will you do in that situation? So there is a STAR technique, I would say STAR. So S is the situation here, it stands for situation. So in that situation, what you will do, or what was the situation, you can talk about it to the interviewer. So the situation was you had a conflict or a misunderstanding with your colleague, and it was related to the work or a project that was submitted, and you found you or the other person had a misunderstanding. So in that, you put down that situation. So this is a situation. Or there was a verbal conflict, like a verbal disagreement. Sometimes these days is all email conflicts I've come across, and there were misunderstanding from both sides. So you can take either an example of an email or a verbal conflict that you had, or a misunderstanding. It could be like, you can say that this happens, this is what I'm going to do. So situation. In the task, So the T stands for task. In this situation, what are you intending to do to prevent this conflict escalating further? So you are trying to de-escalate the situation. So you don't want to be that trigger and cause more issues or more conflicts between you and your colleagues. So in this situation, you're trying to de-escalate this. So you wanting to do and one-to-one, it's better to have a one-to-one communication. You can have a one-to-one communication. You can have a one-to-one meeting with that person personally, instead of involving others at this point. But if it's necessary, you have to. But then at this point, you can just resolve it within both of you. So you call your colleague to have a one-to-one discussion and try and understand their perspective, and then you can clear off your misunderstanding here at this point. Okay, the action is okay, there is no further action needed. We both understood, like, it was the wording in the email that caused a slight misunderstanding. I interpreted it this way, whereas the context, that person was putting it in a different context, but I thought the tone, I've come across like this, like people, even with students, sometimes they say it looks like the tone is the person is being, the tone of the person was quite rude, but actually I would question, like, how would you understand the tone in an email? It was not like, it wasn't mentioned like that. They were clearly trying to explain. But this is a thing, one example where people can misunderstand and assume that this person is quite rude in an email, but actually on the other hand, that person would have just was trying to put forth their points clearly, or what is the expectations, or they would have explained the guidelines there. Anyway, so in this situation here, the person here you've taken that person aside and you've discussed and you've understood where the misunderstanding came from. You've cleared that, so that's action. Yes. And then the result is the problem is being solved here, because you have de-escalated the situation rather than taking it further and discussing it in front of other people, or causing more trauma in that perspective, causing more further damage and further the conflict to get further beyond that level. At this point, if it comes to that point, then there is no other way that we have to involve the higher authorities. At this point, it could be your manager, your line manager, sometimes even the HR manager is involved, but you did not take it to that level. You de-escalated that situation. So this is what you must be showcasing that in that interview. But it would be very easy if the interviewer also gives you a scenario, then you can try and see how you have de-escalated the situation by trying to understand a clear communication, being respectful, understanding the person, different cultures. People are, we work in a diverse work culture. We are trying to be inclusive and make sure you're trying to understand each person's beliefs, ideas, considering their cultural and their background as well. So I thought this is really important that we discuss this conflict management here. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to question me, and I'm more than happy to give you more answers in this videos. Thank you. Until then, bye bye.